It tells me I'm live. Welcome everybody to Another Words, another week, another fun time. So glad to see everybody here. We
Hey, everybody.
have a special guest. Evan's not with us today. He's on assignment. I told him he's going to have to report back next week. He's got a long list of homework, but we're certainly glad to be joined by Richard Waystack. Say hello, sir.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon.
So good to be here. The word of the week this week is mobilize. So what we typically do is just kind of, I'd sort of like a 60-second version. When we say the word mobilize, what do you think comes to your mind first off the bat, Richard?
Oh, good Lord. We've mobilized on so many ways. I'm still a practicing realtor here on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Lovely beach behind me is about 2 blocks down from my office. But I also represent the Residential Real Estate Council. I'm the national president this year, and we've mobilized on all levels. I know how we're doing business has changed immediately. And if you're conducting business, you had to change immediately. I know what we're doing from the Residential Real Estate Council. We've had to change immediately our platform of education from in-person courses to online very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Trying to mobilize in terms of our members. What do people want? What do people need right now?
Well, let's dive into that. What do agents need at a time like this? I mean, given your position and from leadership, what do you find that's the most immediate need from your agents or from your members?
2 things, 2 most important things. My leadership team did a Facebook Live last week in a discussion with our members, and I'm Zooming all over the place these days. I'm doing more meetings, and I'm meeting with different groups from around the country. The 2 major things that people are looking for is, how do I continue to conduct business under this situation? And it's different from state to state. And number 2, most importantly, talk to me about the CARES Act.
Yeah.
How can I benefit from the CARES Act? Tell me how to do it. Case in point, we had an outstanding free webinar that we offered not just to our members, we opened it up to all of the associations in the country with 2 of the foremost authorities, a gentleman by the name of Chris Bird, who was the senior RRC instructor, and Dale Carlton. Chris was a former IRS agent.
Oh, wow.
His wife is a broker. So he's adapted as an accountant, his business now, to financial planning for realtors. He did a wonderful job explaining the CARES Act and how it can impact all of us. 2,000 people registered for that webinar, and we then made it free to everybody. But the numbers of people who actually applied for assistance during that webinar, while the webinar was going on, was phenomenal.
Wow, yeah.
People want to know how I can take advantage of that. What do I qualify for? And then, of course, the question of the week, should I file for unemployment or not? So we have to get that information out immediately to our members and to, I think, realtors across the country.
That's awesome. Yeah. Talk about mobilization. Good gracious. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. And we'll talk about specific examples in a second. So Lee, Jody, jump in here. Richard's our guest, so he got 60 seconds. You get 30. Give us the 30-second version of mobilization.
My thought is as I said, is in the ideal sort of situation of mobilization, it's actually a planned strategy to adjust to a new business model. And I'm not sure we were all planned. We all had that portion of it. And one of the things I hope is that at some point in time, and we may be talking as late as 2021, that we do that, is that we look a little carefully at what we had planned in that classic business continuity or crisis management on all levels, from an agent to a office to a brokerage to our councils. As you know, Richard is currently this year's president of the Residential Real Estate Council. I'm the vice president for the Real Estate Business Institute. These are 2 larger nationals. You and Lee have both been involved on the NAR's levels and are involved in REBI and RRC as well. And we're talking even these, did we have plans in place? And I get that this is a totally crazy time for all of us. But as Richard just stated, here was information that his people needed immediately. They needed from him something to really go forward with their success. That's what mobilization is being able to implement those, and so having some plans and systems in place. So I look at it.
Yeah.
Ms. Lee?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I said in our video, and what I'm thinking mobilize means not just movement, but it's implementation with purpose. Real estate agents, in my experience, are great at sitting around the office talking about what they're going to do, or they're always getting ready to do something. In the South, we're always fixing to, right? We're fixing to do something. Mobilizing is actually
I forgot to tell you, Richard, you have to be on my side here with the northern slang as opposed to the southerners here. You have to be on my side.
But you got to get off your butt and do something. Mobilize. Take action, because sitting around talking about it doesn't get us anywhere. So I love mobilize. I think it has purpose, and when I hear the word, I think of it as a power word.
Well, let me ask you this, and Richard, this might be for you, is you did a good job of sort of getting that information out there. But from that standpoint, the first thing we need to decide is how do you know what you need? Like here, we had this event. How do we cut through all the noise and go, okay, what do my members need? What do my buyers and sellers need? Like, how do we make that determination?
Brent, great question. And people, frankly, don't care what the heck we know till they know how much we care. And so communicating is the most important thing. And that's it's been across every platform that I have seen. What do our people need? Talking to them. I spend the majority of my day, and I've got 30,000 members that I represent, talking to our state presidents, our regional vice presidents, our members who have actually come down with COVID. What do you need right now? And in communication, there are only two questions that need to be asked of people. Number one, Brent, how are you and your family doing during this time?
Yeah.
And then let you chat. And then come back with, is there anything that we can do to assist? And that's where you get, here's what I need. We've talked to so many agents, and Jody, you had a great point. In terms of your plan, how many of our agents have already recast their budgets for the year? Because they realize that their income projections are no longer going to be reasonable. And so that as we plan our years, we all do, we've got our goals and our budget set. How many need to recast those? I've talked to two major producers, 100 million plus producers, who have said their incomes are going to be impacted by 50 to 60% this year. So do you think they need to look at their budget and to look at their expenses and start saying, if my income is going to be affected by 50 to 60%, how am I going to look at my budget and adjust that now? Again, mobilization. And Lee, I love that. Get off your butt and do something. Take a look at those budgets right now.
Yeah. I would add to that too, Richard, is the particularly mobilizing or looking at some of the things that were on autopilot. From expenses, those are things that are being automatically deducted, particularly the little things, 5 here, 10 there, et cetera, you don't notice. And I said this, I think it was last week or the week before, I said this, people, if you have newsletters or lists going out, stop them and adjust them. Because if I get one more automated email from a real estate agent in my newsletter that is so inappropriate, I think you're doing so much more damage. So mobilizing those things, I think adjusting those things are really important, as you said, Richard.
Wow.
Best thing you can do right now is cancel your business credit card.
Yeah. Oh.
Seriously, because
Good
think
one.
of how many of those things that you pay automatically every month. And if you cancel the credit card, the vendor has to call you. And now it's a great opportunity to say to that vendor, hey, you know what? I'm really not doing any business right now. Let's talk about how we can adjust what we're doing.
Right.
Great opportunity. Call today, cancel your business credit card, get another one by tomorrow.
I've totally used that in a business planning when I used to teach. I just say, cancel your card. That way you know what exactly is recurring, and it gives you the opportunity to go, do I really need this? So excellent way.
I want to add to that budget discussion. I think a lot of agents and maybe even some brokers, their instinct to cut money is to cut advertising. That's the first thing that goes. And that probably is going to have to be cut some, but I don't think it's appropriate. I mean, I know that it's not appropriate to just kill your advertising budget. You may not have as many listings to advertise, but you still have a brand that you need now more than ever to get in front of that market. So, you know, like these guys were saying, take a look at all that automated spending you're doing, and what do you really need? And what can you cut? You know, where can you get lean? And get lean on some of that advertising too. But don't let the advertising be the easy target, because now you're going to need it more than ever.
Right. I think that's sort of a different point of view. That's sort of where I look at some of this is you kind of see to some degree it going a little bit back and forth. But for those people that did plan, that did prepare, that do have some nuts that are gathered away, one strategy is to double down. Everybody else is going to be getting lean, and that means the space is wide open for somebody to just bust that door down. So I think for those people that have that strategy and perhaps have saved, it might be an opportunity to sort of mobilize those resources and shoot them straight through and break the door down. So.
Yeah, agree, but you got to be strategic about it. I'm not saying if you've got savings, just throw your money at everything, right?
No.
Yeah, I would agree. As distasteful as it may be, we will see, because, you know, we have all been through this before. All four of us have seen a time or two of this. And mergers and acquisitions, whether you want to call them recruitments or merger, you know, whatever you want to call them, those things are going to happen in our industry. And so if you're looking to build, you know, this may be an opportunity, and it also might be a lifeline for someone
right.
to merge their office in, or merge into a team, or some of those things as well.
That was my point, Jody, is I'm not saying it's distasteful. I'm saying in today's market, people need to buy and sell. And there's a lot of agents that are kind of, you know, kind of trying to figure out, and rightfully so, you know, trying to survive. But for those agents that have planned for some sort of, you know, whatever, you know, some people plan for a down market. This is a whole different scenario, but you're still able to capture those people that are willing to buy and sell.
They went to one or two of Chris Bird's seminars, right, Richard?
Probably.
I was saying, actually, I was planning for retirement, but this is what I'm going to get to do instead.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, spend a few minutes with Richard, because let me tell you, he will not. He'll get you on that right, you know, retirement savings, you know, mobilization road. I can tell you that. I promise you that.
Well, Richard,
you know,
go ahead.
I just want to piggyback on the marketing and advertising. It's a great opportunity. I know our team here in the office, we're talking with some media outlets right now. It's the message you want to get across, you know, and that message of people, hey, we're here. We do care. We're the community. And what are the issues you're having? How can we help you? If you're looking to buy and you're unsure, well, you need to get that pre-approval updated right now. So here are the steps. It's all about listening and communication right now. And I think it's a great time to advertise, but it's to advertise that we care, because when this ends, they're not going to remember those who were advertising a particular home. They're going to remember the people who reached out to them to say, hey, we care about you. What can we do to help you out?
That's a good point. So let's talk a little bit about the tools. We've talked a little bit about the message. So what tools do you use? All right. What's in the tool bag in order to make this happen, to implement this?
Well, I'm gonna say that tools are people as well. And one of the things that the groups of people that should be reaching out with the message to you and the message to your clients and customers are the other members of our teams, our loan officers, our attorneys, our title companies, you know, insurance companies, appraisals, and home inspectors, all those people that I always call my team going on. They have a message right now, and they have a message to us in the real estate industry And they should be stepping up to the plate and spending their money on sponsorship and getting in front of people and giving them this message. And then they should be helping that partner send that message out to that community, to the clients, because, you know, giving them the right message, you know, what it takes to buy a house today, you know, is really important, because we already know that millennials were hugely scared of buying a house because they didn't get it. They didn't understand it. So they were spending astronomical amounts of money on rent instead of purchasing when they could have. They're going to get it even less if we don't go out and get that message out. So I think our tool is our team to get the correct message out.
Richard, what do you think? The biggest tool is people?
Well, question. I had a home inspection yesterday, put a property under contract late last week. It was not a virtual showing, it was an in-person. So immediately, seller's concerned, buyer's concerned. How do we alleviate their concerns about getting in to see a house? What are the restrictions have you placed? What expectations do both that buyer and seller, and I had another agent involved, that they're going to be safe? My market is predominantly older, and it skews to what they say older adults, which is the politically correct term for senior citizens, of which I am a proud member. But we had to allay the fears of the seller to say, here's what we're going to do. Everyone's masked, everyone's gloved. We will sanitize, turn on all the lights for us so no one will touch a light switch, crack all the doors open so that no one's opening a door handle. We'll sanitize when we come in. We'll have 1 or 2, whatever you're comfortable with, people in the house at a time. If I'm showing it, I'm staying outside. I'm waiting. I'm there to answer questions. But yesterday was a home inspection. I got there and there were 4 people there. We said, wait a minute, we talked about what are the expectations of that? The home inspector and the buyer can go through. I don't need the other agent following them around. And again, where's the social distancing? Yeah. But we arrived at a point where both the buyer and seller were satisfied, and the buyer is closing on a house in 2 weeks. They need to find a place to live. So we forget that the business continues to go on. There are people who need to buy, who need to sell, and it will continue coming back to the 3 basics: relationships, communication, and trust. And you've got to convey that information out to people. Those who are doing a great job virtually. I know a number of agents who do a virtual open house every day at 4 o'clock. My question for a lot of our buyers, will you buy that house sight unseen? And I don't know what you're hearing from your folks, but a lot of my folks are saying, no, I still want to see it.
I think so. I think you're going to get buyers that still want to look through it. I think what you're getting is buyers that are going to look through fewer houses, where normally they'd want to see every house in the market. Now they're just going to be very picky. So I think that's interesting. Lee, what say you?
I don't think the tools have changed. I think we I got all the same tools I had a month ago. I'm just using them differently, right? You know, and I'm finding that, you know, sometimes you try to do something that is, you know, kind of new to the marketplace and everybody like freaks out. They can't handle it. Well, now with everything that's going on, I find it easier to get new ideas, you know, like approved by the client or the other agents or whatever. You know, I mean, I've sold, you know, in 25 years, I've sold, I think it's 5 houses that the buyer never saw in person before they had a closing and, you know, showed up with the U-Haul. And those were good deals for every one of those people, you know? And so it's never been something to me that seemed like, oh my God, how can you do that? It's like, why don't more people do that? Right. And so I think they're more receptive to it. And I think if you've got some great idea and you're wondering why nobody's ever done it, or, you know, they haven't been receptive before, try again, because right now they might be. You know, if it's efficient, if it's a good idea, go for it. That your tool is your brain. Your tool is, you know, taking advantage of the opportunities that are there and taking care of people. That's what we do.
So the tools have always been there. How we use them has changed. That's interesting. Okay.
Brent, I attended a webinar Monday. There's a gentleman doing staying in touch with your database. And he brought something out, and there were probably 300 people on the webinar. and actually it was a Zoom, and he talked about, we're talking about something called an hour of power. And I said, oh dear God, we've been talking about that for 30 years, for God's sake. You know, calling your sphere, calling your database, you know, what is old is new again. It really, and Lee, I agree that things really haven't changed a whole lot. It's just using our brain and saying, let's get down to the basics of what this industry needs that we have gotten away with automation and technology. But it still comes back to those three things: relationships, communication, and trust.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, this is just an opportunity for, you know, entrepreneurs to remind themselves that hustle is the real power. That, I mean, you got to have some hustle.
Yeah.
And we've gone through markets where that wasn't as true as it is right now. But, you know, we're getting a little reminder. You got to hustle.
So how do you do it?
Get dressed. Like, I mean, like seriously, like get up, get dressed, you know. I'm not going to try to fool everybody. I haven't done makeup and hair every day. I only do that when I'm going to be on video, right? Because I've got to save money on cosmetics. So you know, I got to do something. But I'm also not on the couch in front of the TV all day long, loving on the dogs, right? I'm in the office at my desk and the dogs are here on the floor. So I'm working, I'm looking for things to do that will help. And while on one hand, I'm just about tired of all the Zoom meetings, I also keep going because I'm getting information. You know, I'm getting stuff, I'm getting tips, I'm getting hints that even if I don't do what they're talking about, they always say something that generates my brain and to think, you know, and so maybe I come up with something that might work for me. So,
you know, when you say that, I was thinking before when Richard was talking is, it's, you can tell me to call for an hour, and I think that might go back to Zig Ziglar, doesn't it, Richard? I think, although it maybe goes back before.
I think it's Sweat Hogs. I think it's Floyd Wickman.
Floyd Wickman. I was going to say, I can remember sitting in the Lowell Auditorium listening to that many years ago, my first sales job. But if you don't tell me the how to do that, like what do I say and et cetera, then that's what puts me on the couch sitting there doing nothing because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to mobilize that. So people not only need the what, they need the how to do that. So while you're still interested in the Zoom, what captures people in these presentations is the how. And you heard Richard almost word for word gave out the script that Evan said, now 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Now, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? How can I help? You know, and that's the how to reach out to people and build those relationships and mobilize your communication skills. And I don't think that has changed ever.
Well, I see, and maybe it's just sort of the forums that I'm in, but I see a lot of paralysis. I mean, people, it's, you know, I'm in Louisiana, Richard, and we're working on a month. I mean, we've been shelter in place for we're working on 4 weeks, and still you've got agents. I mean, I had something this morning, and business is still crazy busy, which is odd, but you still have this segment where they're just paralyzed. And you know, how would an agent who's otherwise paralyzed get going other than to say, hey, you got to hustle?
I love the old analysis by paralysis discussion. There's a great, last year, 2 years ago at Celebration, RRC had Mel Robbins, 5-second decisions. You know, and Leah, it goes back to what you said, get off your butt. You know, I love the fact that getting up every day, having breakfast with my wife every day, working out every day, going to work every day by 8 or 8:30, you know, doing a normal routine, going to lunch at noon time. But this is a great opportunity to keep to our routines, but to get some new masterminds together to say, hey, Brent, what's working right now in Louisiana? You know, it's a perfect opportunity for us to do a couple things. get some really good information. R&D is the best thing in the world. Rip off and duplicate for someone who's doing it really well. Give them credit. But it's an opportunity to create some new referral partners by finding some new masterminds to say, okay, how do I make that call? Well, here are 50 topics for you to talk to a client about. It's a great opportunity for past clients that you haven't talked to in 5 years. Hey, I was thinking about how you're getting through during this time. How to write a handwritten note. How many lines does it take? 3 lines in a note is all it takes for people to open that note and feel really special that they got a handwritten note.
Right.
These are all back to the basics, but it's a perfect opportunity. It's a perfect opportunity right now to get it done. Just as Lee would say, get off your butt and do it.
Yeah, that's not on my tombstone now.
Yeah.
I'm going to echo what Richard just said, because I don't know if Gary Rogers is on this time. He's been on before to us, but yeah, hi, Gary. He knows. Richard might have been witness to this as well. I'm a huge Mel Robbins geek. So when we had her at NAR in Boston, when
like a little too much. It's a little too, your Mel Robbins is a little too much.
Unbelievable.
I say that as a friend.
Yes. But get on her YouTube station, because she really has some great motivational, and she also has some saved programs that she has done at the beginning of the years, both this year 2020 and last year 2019, that were fabulous programs. So highly recommend. I mean, those are great tools for really getting up and getting going. And if you have not read the 5-second rule, read it. It's a must, in my opinion.
What's the one best thing about that book? Ready to go.
I think the best thing about that book is really how simple the technique is to launch into action from thinking.
Awesome. Well, Richard, I kind of want to switch gears just a minute and kind of talk about the outside, the community aspect. You're very community oriented, and before we press the live button, you were kind of telling us a little bit about some of the boards you chair and some of the challenges you have. So let's talk about those community projects and how you were able to kind of mobilize and get those out to people.
I live in a community here on the seaside, and we have about 12,000 year-round people. And that triples in the summertime, as Jody well knows. But we're also an older community. And I'm chairman of our Council on Aging, and we have feeding programs where people come into our Council on Aging during the week to have lunch for nutrition and for networking and socialization. That has stopped. All the community buildings are now closed. So we're putting together feeding programs so that volunteers can, again, get those meals out to these people who need it, again, for that bit of socialization, like similar to what's happening with Meals on Wheels, but more so in the schools. As these schools are shut down, there's so many kids on subsidized programs for both subsidized breakfast and lunch that was a big concern with some of the schools in making a decision to close down. How are these kids, in many cases, those were the meals that they had during the day. So again, creating programs immediately so that people could drive by, pick up lunches, breakfasts and lunches for their kids. Those are things, it's all about caring. It's all about community. So that's what we are.
You said that there were volunteers that went ahead and put this together for the Council on Aging?
What happened is the Council on Aging did it, but they needed people to get involved. Who's going to drive to people's houses and drop off these meals to them?
How did you find these folks?
People come out of the woodwork. People need and want to be asked to help. And once you tell them, we have a food pantry in my community. It gives out over $4 million on Cape Cod every year to those in need. That food pantry is being overrun right now. They have, and again, this is a small community of 12,000 people. They have over 650 volunteers who are helping to see that people get fed during this time. So there's a lot of goodness out there, and it's, you all see it in your own communities, that we just need to have our eyes open and be aware of it. And sometimes people need to be asked to step up, but once you ask them, they do step up.
So where did these people find out they needed help? Was it just like a social media post or an email? Or I mean, like, how do you get that many people to say, hey, I'm going to be here?
Really simple. Again, it's knowing your community.
Okay.
And we as realtors, you know that. We know our communities well. Someone hits something. Someone makes a phone call. I need something. Can you help out? More phone calls are made. Something's posted on social media. Boom. Next thing you know, people are mobilized to do it. A lot of good in people out there. And it's just, as realtors, we know our communities better than anybody else.
Yeah. It just, going back to our word mobilization, I was just curious as to how you get, hey, there's a need. And next thing you know, 650 people are out there willing to help. I think, that's what's been the good side of this is you've got a lot of folks that and even realtors, some people that need help and some people that want to help. And part of the mobilization part is kind of identifying the need and then matching those people together. If it were,
it starts with communication though. It still comes back to that basic. And you know that you have got a network as Jody talks about our extended teams. We've got the people ready. It's just reaching out.
I would add to that. We all know, all four of us have been involved, highly involved from our local, state, and national level and our councils and the Realtor organization. We are excellent at mobilizing each other to help. We've seen it how many countless of times after Katrina, after 9/11, after the flooding in Houston. We see it over and over and over again. And this is the time, I think, for people to mobilize their Realtor group again to help their